Chapter 136, True Unspecialized. In the so-called arena contest, 2 players had already fallen. Their defeats had been thorough and beautiful, making the others lose their confidence. Vice-Captain Deng Fusheng stole a glance at the captain. Wang Jiaxi's expression was as usual, as if he wasn't affected. But what about the team? Deng Fusheng looked around. The team members all had nervous expressions. Some were also glancing at the captain. Deng Fusheng knew that they were all scared that their captain would choose them to go up next. None of the team members had confidence in defeating Lord Grimm. And Lord Grimm? He was just sitting there, eating food and drinking potions, recovering his health and mana. Wang Jiaxi didn't stop him. And none of the team members did either. They weren't there to murder him, so they didn't mind if Lord Grimm rested. If they won by dragging the fights out until his mana ran out, there wouldn't be any meaning to winning for Tiny Herb. But what should they do next? Wang Jiaxi was also a bit hesitant. It wasn't possible to beat him in a duel, that was already clear. Let alone the other team members, he himself didn't have confidence in beating Lord Grimm in a duel. This unspecialized character. Ha ha, a laugh was suddenly heard. It didn't come from the practice room, but rather from the game. At this moment, who in Team Tiny Herb could laugh? The person who laughed was, of course, Yi Shu. Like I was saying, if you're looking to use me as a training partner, this way isn't very useful, right? Yi Shu said. It's a rare opportunity, Wang Jiaxi replied. You're not afraid these children are going to be mentally traumatized? Yi Shu said. Children. Besides Gao Yingji and Qiao Yifan, everyone was petrified. Who were children? You're a bit too confident, aren't you? Wang Jiaxi said. Ha ha, Yi Shu laughed again. Let me ask you. Among everyone here, including you, has anyone here ever fought with a true unspecialized character? Silence reigned, both within game and outside of the game. In the practice room, Team Tiny Herb's members all looked at each other, unsure. It was true. To them, unspecialized characters were only a myth. Unspecialized characters had already disappeared by the time the pro scene had started. Those who knew about unspecialized characters and could tell stories about them could already be considered seniors. And Wang Jiaxi? He had already been in the alliance for 5 years. As of today, this season was his 6th year. His experience couldn't be considered shallow, but when Yi Shu had led Excellent Era to victory as 3-time consecutive champions, he had only just started playing Glory. And at that time, unspecialized characters had already long disappeared. Those with 10 years of experience in Glory weren't few among the player population. But there were only a few left in the pro scene. As long as a player wanted to play the game, he could play. But for pro players, they couldn't avoid growing washed out due to the pro scene's competitiveness. Whether they could continue playing as a pro wasn't something that they could just do if they wanted to. Unspecialized characters were also a myth to Wang Jiaxi. But if you said that he had 0 experience with them, then that wasn't true. When Wang Jiaxi entered Tiny Herb, there was a senior team member that had once played unspecialized. When the 3rd server opened, he didn't abandon his account or change classes like other unspecialized characters did. Instead, he kept his unspecialized character as a memento. That was how Wang Jiaxi knew of the existence of unspecialized characters. He had even tried comparing notes with his senior's unspecialized character and personally experienced and understood an unspecialized character's advantages and disadvantages at that time. And in the end, when that senior retired, he gave his unspecialized account card as a gift to Wang Jiaxi, which he had kept well to this day. Wang Jiaxi still remembered his senior's lament towards unspecialized characters. Unspecialized characters are still a bit of a fantasy. Even if the level restriction is freed. The issue of weapons and the issue of the user are still large problems that are enough to restrict players from playing unspecialized. Perhaps, if there was a single weapon that could use all of the skills and an extremely experienced user proficient in every class, then it may be possible to truly use an unspecialized character's strength. This had originally been a joke. But now, this joke had become a reality that was now in front of his eyes. Yi Chu, an existence known as a textbook in glory, proficient in all classes, extremely experienced, was now using one. As for the weapon, the weird weapon in Lord Grimm's hand had been noticed by everyone already, and there wasn't any shortage of discussion on it. This Lord Grimm had clearly never changed his weapon before. It was only his weapon that changed forms, which allowed him to use all sorts of skills. Sword to gun, gun to sword. Switching forms in that way didn't have any cooldowns like how changing weapons did. The knowledgeable pro players could already see that this was a self-made weapon, a terrifying self-made weapon. True unspecialized character. This was a true unspecialized character. After recalling that joke his senior teammate once said, Wang Jiexi finally understood what Yi Shu was saying. A true unspecialized character. This was a true unspecialized character. Even in that era of unspecialized characters, there was never once a true unspecialized character. There was no one out there who had any experience fighting against a true unspecialized like him. Keep on dueling Yi Chu? Wang Jiexi looked around left and right. All he saw were worried faces. Even in last year's deciding match, these faces hadn't appeared. At that time, even though they were nervous, it wasn't like now where they had absolutely no confidence in obtaining victory. Under those worried faces hid confusion, not nervousness. And they hadn't even fought with Lord Grimm yet. They had only seen Lord Grimm fight with Liang Fang and Lu Xiaobi, and that was all. And those two? Wang Jiexi thought. He looked at Liang Fang and Lu Xiaobi. From their two faces, Wang Jiexi saw dismay and disappointment. Wang Jiexi finally understood that Yi Chu wasn't being overconfident. Wang Jiexi thought that he had found a god to practice with, but now from the looks of it, this god had struck a blow to his team's morale, destroying his teammates' self-confidence. The creative idea Wang Jiexi had come up with had turned disastrous. What now? Wang Jiexi found that the current situation was quite problematic. He had gotten into a situation which he couldn't get out of. If they continued dueling, then all that would do is destroy everyone's self-confidence, possibly including himself too. Wang Jiexi already found that his state of mind had already been affected. He had been overcautious, all because their opponent's strength had also deeply shocked him. Like this, the only way he'd be able to win back his team's confidence was to personally duel and beat him. However, at this moment, he already had no confidence. He was afraid. He was afraid that if he lost, his teammates' confidence would be thoroughly destroyed with no way of recovering. Wang Jiexi clearly knew his position in his teammates' hearts. Since the beginning, he had been used to carrying his teammates and rushing forward for the win. But this time, he wasn't able to carry them. He didn't dare carry them. Yi Chu was truly too terrifying. Even though he had only defeated two of Tiny Herb's members, even Wang Jiexi was feeling the pressure. Should we leave? But Lord Grimm's psychological pressure had already been planted into everyone's hearts. With this mental trauma, their future improvements, performance, and stability might all be negatively affected. These were not exaggerated words. Their mental state during a competition was a very important element. With how they were right now, would they be able to overcome their current psychological fears through their mental fortitude? No. This was the enormous psychological pressure from Lord Grimm's astonishing strength. Unless they defeated Lord Grimm, there would be no way of getting rid of it. But for this to happen, it wasn't really possible for them to duel and beat him. This time, they could only rely on the entire team's strength. Wang Jiexi decided on a plan and immediately shouted calmly, "Everyone!" The teammates at this moment were all somewhat out of it. Hearing their captain's shout, they immediately focused. Up together, everyone heard their captain's two words. 9 players. At this moment, they had a total of 9 players. Liang Fang and Lu Xiaobi hadn't yet come back. However, 9 pro players against 1. Don't be polite. Let's go, Wang Jiexi shouted. Right now, he had to break their doubts of 9 against 1. Using his position in the team, this was still something he could do. Sure enough, after hearing their captain's resolute command, everyone's attention returned to the battlefield. Oh, Lord Grimm also got up. Yi Shu laughed. Is this okay? How could Wang Jiexi not know that 9 versus 1 was somewhat overkill? But there was already no way he could change that. Although this way of obtaining victory would be somewhat embarrassing, at least this feeling would be better than the mental scar of having no way of winning. A team competition, just like you wanted. Wang Jiaxi hoped that he could at least dissolve his teammates' embarrassment, even if he himself looked shameless. That wasn't what I meant, Yi Shu still calmly laughed. What I mean is, if your entire team goes up and your team gets wiped out, wouldn't that be an even bigger blow? Is this okay? F***ck. Hearing this, Tiny Herb's team members all suddenly had their fighting spirits ignited. The previous them harbored thoughts of fear. A 9 versus 1 battle didn't stimulate any of their fighting spirit. However, now that they heard how arrogant Yi Chu was, their fighting spirits once again roared. Thank you. Your words came at the perfect time, Wang Jiaxi smiled. Their embarrassment for a 9 versus 1 battle had been wiped out because of Yi Chu's words. Let's go, Yi Shu said and then suddenly moved. Lord Grimm turned around and unexpectedly ran off. There's nowhere to run. Wang Jiaxi found that everything was developing better than he had imagined. With Lord Grimm running away, his image of being invincible had collapsed a little bit, although running away wasn't really shameful in a 9v1 situation. Wang Jiaxi's fiery blaze rode his broom and with a whoosh, chased Lord Grimm, hoping to block him using his advantage in speed. However, Lord Grimm flashed, leaving behind a shadow clone for him, while his real self disappeared without a trace. Captain. The other teammates weren't in the battle yet, but they could see the field clearly. Lord Grimm's real body had flashed up into the air, heading straight for Fiery Blaze, who was riding on his broom underneath him. I know, Wang Jiaxi had rich experience. He wouldn't be hit so easily. His character rolled on his broom and jumped down, just barely dodging this attack. With a sweep of his broom, his witch sent an accurate attack towards Lord Grimm. Chapter 137, Encirclement. A gun sound rang out. Lord Grimm suddenly fired and a bullet came out. Using the recoil, he flew back, just barely dodging Fiery Blaze's sweep. However, his bullet had missed. A witch could complete 6 combos in mid-air because sweep gave the user a small knock-up effect. If not, then no matter how fast your hand speed was, it wasn't possible to complete more than 2 normal attacks before you landed. Wang Jiaxi wasn't an ordinary player. He fully utilized this and used sweep while controlling his character in order to dodge his opponent's attack. Even though the bullet was fired closely and quickly, it still wasn't able to hit him. Li Ji, Wang Jiaxi called out a name. Someone immediately answered back and then fired his gun at Lord Grimm. Li Ji, part of Team Tiny Herb's main roster. He was currently using the level 27 sharpshooter, untraceable bullet. As a long-ranged character, he immediately fired towards Lord Grimm. Pro players' marksmanship didn't need to be mentioned. Though they didn't have 100% accuracy, their accuracy was much higher than normal players. Untraceable bullet was using the level 25 purple weapon Western revolver and instantly shot out 6 bullets. Guns were different from other weapons. Attack speed didn't indicate the bullet's movement speed, but rather the firing rate. The quickest is the handgun with an attack speed of 10, capable of firing 8 bullets in a row. Next is the revolver, with an attack speed of 7 or 8, which could shoot out 6 bullets in a row. Next is the crossbow, which could shoot out 4 bullets in a row. Fourth is the rifle, with an attack speed of 2 or 3, and it could usually shoot out 2 bullets in a row. The slowest was the hand cannon, which could only be shot once before needing to reload. Thus, like this, the 5 types of guns had differences in attack speed. Players used whichever gun type they preferred. Besides attack speed, different gun types did different amounts of damage and had different ways of calculating damage. For example, for the revolver, the weapon fired a total of 6 times before needing to reload. Thus, each bullet's damage would be of the gun's damage. The other gun times were calculated similarly. Besides this, there were also other special effects. For example, the hand cannon had AoE damage and the rifle had penetrating damage. All of these effects could be triggered by normal attacks. Untraceable bullet shot out 6 bullets. It was too difficult for Lord Grimm to dodge in midair, thus he immediately opened up his umbrella. The umbrella opened and all 6 bullets hit. However, these bullets just became a pushing force, letting Lord Grimm move backwards even faster. Everyone coughed a bit of blood. This ever-changing weapon was a bit too ridiculous. It could even be used as a shield. After Lord Grimm landed on the ground, without even turning his head, he ran. 1 versus 9. It definitely wasn't possible for him to fight them head-on. These were all pro players. Even if unspecialized characters had the advantage of a vast pool of skills, it wasn't so ridiculous that he could do that. The reason Yi Shu could easily beat Liang Fang and Liu Xiaobi was because 1. He was more skilled, 2. Unspecialized characters had the advantage in the amount of skills, 3. Those two players didn't have any experience against an unspecialized character. It was because of these reasons that he was able to completely destroy these two opponents. The latter two reasons were the most important points. If not, then even if he is a god-level player, he still wouldn't be able to always win even against normal pro players. The issue of on-stage performance had to be considered. Otherwise, what was the point of competition? If that was the case, then the winner would be decided just by looking at the player roster. This reasoning is the same as in football or basketball. Little Jia, Wang Jiaxi shouted. Gao Yingji answered. His weeping crow quickly rode his broom to chase after Lord Grimm. Just as Wang Jiaxi's fiery blaze landed, he quickly jumped onto his broom. These two witches flew extremely low, almost touching the ground. The lower one flew, the faster one would be. This was because the distance that could be flown was limited. At the distance limit, the faster one jumped down, the faster one would be. This faster movement had to be done quickly. Weeping Crow and Fiery Blaze flew at the lowest possible altitude. This action relied on mechanical skill to complete. Only extremely quick hands could instantly complete this move. Lord Grimm suddenly stopped. He turned around and sent out a Gatling gun. With a shake, the bullet split into two towards the two players. Weeping Crow and Fiery Blaze split off going left and right respectively, avoiding the bullets. Because the two pulled away to dodge the bullets, they had no way of recovering their lost distance and time. This halt gave enough time for the gunner to get into firing range. Li Ji and Lu Fei, the two sharpshooters, both fired. The bullets flew out and the PK temporarily turned into a gunfight. As overlapping classes in the team, the coordination between Li Ji and Lu Fei was originally a type of tactical choice. The two coordinated exceptionally well. Lu Fei's Fallen Angel fired straight at Lord Grimm, while Li Ji fired where he predicted where Lord Grimm would move. The bullets repeatedly fell at Lord Grimm's feet, hitting dirt into the air, but were unable to hit Lord Grimm. Although Li Ji and Lu Fei's coordination was exceptional, how could Yi Shu not understand what they were trying to do? Li Ji had predicted where he would move, while he counter-predicted where Li Ji would shoot. Li Ji and Lu Fei were helpless. Their below-level 30 characters really did restrict their performance. If they had a few more skills, then they'd at least be able to control a larger area. But right now, normal attacks were their main methods of attacking. In a PK, how could normal attacks work? In a PK, players mostly relied on their characters' skills. But the low-leveled skills below level 30 weren't really helpful right now for Li Ji and Lu Fei's coordination. Yet even though they missed, their attacks still delayed Lord Grimm. On the side, Wang Jiaxi and Gao Yingji continued to close in on him. Desolate Land wasn't a flat land. While Yi Shu made Lord Grimm dodge, he had already figured out which direction to go to long ago. After a few steps, he jumped up and leapt over a short wall. With this leap, the two gunners could only vent their anger at the earth wall. Li Yiwei, Zhou Yebai, to the left. Xiao Yun, Chao Yifan, to the right. Gunners continue attacking head-on to restrict his movements, Wang Jiaxi ordered. Yes. The team members all answered and then set out to complete their orders. Li Ji and Lu Fei continued to fire, so that Lord Grimm wouldn't be able to expose his head and scout around. Li Yiwei's character was a grappler and he rushed forward from the left, along with Zhou Yebai's Ghostblade. Xiao Yun's Battle Mage Cloudy Heavens and Chao Yifan's Assassination Moon rushed forward from the right. The two witches came in from the middle. Of course, the witches were the first to arrive. The left and right routes were to prevent Lord Grimm from escaping to the side. Wang Jiaxi's plan was careful and thorough. Except when he and Gao Yingji's witch flew over the earth wall, they looked around left and right, but Lord Grimm had disappeared. Wang Jiaxi's gaze turned and turned until it landed on a shabby, clay room close to the earth wall. The troops from the left and right also went around the earth wall, but after seeing that Lord Grimm wasn't there, they all stared blankly. Wang Jiaxi didn't shout anything this time and individually messaged everyone where to look. The troops from the left and right each circled around the clay room and then reported, "There's no other entrance." Wang Jiaxi nodded his head. At that moment, Vice Captain Deng Fusheng's knight and the 2 sharpshooters had arrived. Wang Jiaxi set up the arrangement. The 9 players each went into their respective position and then made a surprise attack. The 2 sharpshooters opened fire at the room. Deng Fusheng's knight raised his shield. The other close combat characters followed closely behind. The 2 witches rode on their brooms above the building. They would completely fill the building as fast as possible without giving Lord Grimm any chance to escape. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the building. Deng Fusheng's knight crouched and rolled, giving the 2 witches enough space to fly through. Without looking, they began throwing out disperse powder left and right. The troops behind them quickly followed. In the end, there was no Lord Grimm there. Everyone was at a loss. Only the 2 sharpshooters outside didn't know what was going on. Their task was to cover for them. Their guns were still aimed at the door. Once Lord Grimm rushed out, their task would be to stop him. "Where is he?" someone finally asked the question in uncertainty. Wang Jiaxi stared blankly for quite a while too. His character came out of the room and he once again looked around left and right carefully. In Desolate Land, there really were a lot of these broken down clay rooms. But in that short amount of time, Lord Grimm only had enough time to move to this room. If he moved anywhere else, he would have definitely been noticed by the others. What happened? Outside, the sharpshooters felt that something wasn't right. "He's gone," someone replied to the 2 of them. "Strange. Did you see him?" In Tiny Herb's practice room, everyone began discussing amongst each other. They all thought that their character's camera wasn't enough, so they were all looking at each other's computers to look for him. To the right, sharpshooters fire, Wang Jiaxi suddenly ordered. Everyone stared blankly. The 2 sharpshooters turned their camera. On the right, there really was another building. The 2 didn't hesitate and immediately fired at it. "Yifan, go check the back. Everyone else come with me in charge," Wang Jiaxi ordered. Chao Yifan's Ashen Moon ran to go see if there was an exit at the back. The others hurried to inside this room. They almost forgot. That guy had shadow clone technique. If he used it to move, it would be possible for him to reach here. Wang Jiaxi had been thinking of this just a moment ago. After recalculating how far Lord Grimm could move, he discovered that it was possible for Lord Grimm to have escaped to this room. The sharpshooters kept guard on the outside. The knight raised his shield and rolled in. The witches both flew in together and threw down disperse powder. Chao Yifan reported that there was no other exit and everyone rushed in. Everything went smoothly. They had perfectly executed a surprise attack again. However, the results were the same as last time. There was no Lord Grimm. Wang Jiaxi jumped out of the room and once again reassessed the situation. That was it. Besides this room, Lord Grimm had no other options. Even if he used shadow clone technique, it wasn't possible. Could there be some other low-leveled skill that I overlooked? Wang Jiaxi began going over all 120 skills that could be learned before level 20. Chapter 138, Logout Escape. Wang Jiaxi's fiery blaze walked out from the room and continued to observe the surrounding terrain. He knew that he had definitely overlooked something because there was no way Lord Grimm had just disappeared. There were no sneak skills below level 20 that could make a character disappear. They had already eliminated the possibility of Lord Grimm being in these 2 rooms. The third closest room. After looking around, Wang Jiaxi shook his head. Impossible. There wasn't enough time to reach this room. The moving while crouching was very slow. Even if Lord Grimm had rolled the way through, there still wouldn't be enough time. If he wanted to escape into the room before everyone got there, unless he could fly at a low altitude like a witch, it wasn't possible for unspecialized characters. Low altitude flight. Low altitude flight? Wang Jiaxi suddenly thought of something. It was possible for Lord Grimm to fly at a low altitude like a witch. But the ability to fly wasn't something only witches could do. The gunner's aerial fire could fly too. However, flying low with aerial fire meant that he wouldn't have flown far. But he'd at least maintain a certain movement speed. Aerial fire was a technique, so there wasn't any cooldown and it could be used several times. As long as they were strung together, then it'd work. This couldn't be considered difficult for pro players. 11 o'clock, that building, Wang Jiexi couldn't deal with being very careful. After making this sort of judgment, once they tried it, they would know. Yifan, to the back. Everyone else, with me. It was the same order. Even though the others didn't understand why yet, they still followed their captain's orders. The same tactic was employed. The process was done once again. And the results were the same. Quote, he's not either. Wang Jiaxi's judgment had failed 3 times. This was a situation that Tiny Herb's members had never encountered before. At this moment, everyone was extremely astonished. Where exactly was this Lord Grimm hiding? Wang Jiaxi's witch went outside of the building. After looking around left and right, no matter how hard he racked his brains, he wasn't able to figure out where Lord Grimm could possibly be. You, what are you doing? In Happy Internet Cafe, Chen Guo had originally been talking serious business with Yi Shu. After Yi Shu began fighting, she had stood behind Yi Shu watching the entire time, dumbstruck. With her view of the situation, she naturally knew where Lord Grimm was going. After Lord Grimm jumped over the wall and crouched down, Yi Shu immediately used aerial fire. Again and again, the distance he flew with each one was very small. But the speed was very fast. Yi Shu's tempo was quite outstanding. He would use aerial fire again the moment he landed. Like this, if Chen Guo hadn't been able to see the tongues of flames from the gun barrel every time he fired, she wouldn't have been able to tell that he was moving because of him chaining aerial fire together. After moving in this way for several seconds, Lord Grimm suddenly turned around. The scene changed as he entered a building. While escaping into the room, he used the shadow clone technique. Using it once was to use it and instantly move. Using it twice was to get rid of the clone. The shadow clone technique wasn't like a bullet fired from a gunner. The clone could be removed. And after that, Yi Shu quickly used the move, force log out. Only when the game went to the login screen did Chen Guo yell that out. What did you say? Yi Shu had just taken off his headphones. You logged out of the game? Are you looking to die? Chen Guo pointed at the screen and said. Nowadays, technology had improved, so the delay for going online and offline had been reduced by a lot. However, during battle, it wasn't possible to offline normally. Of course, there wasn't any way of preventing players from force quitting the game. But if it was done like this, the characters would stay in their original position for a long time. When the user went back online, his character would be dead 9 times out of 10. If players could instantly log out at any time during battle, then no player would ever die. There's enough time, Yi Shu laughed. Impossible, Chen Guo said. By the time they find me, I'll have already logged out, Yi Shu said. How could they take that long to find you? Chen Guo said. They didn't see that I entered this building, Yi Shu said. Why not? Chen Guo didn't understand. Were you not paying attention? I flew low with aerial fire the entire time. Plus, with the earth wall blocking their view, they couldn't have seen me. And the shadow clone I used after that had been removed by the time they got there. By the time they arrived, they couldn't have found me, Yi Shu said. But the place where you were at, it looked like there were only a few buildings there. If they just casually looked around, wouldn't they have found you? Chen Guo was a bit hesitant. Honestly speaking, Lord Grimm's camera had only quickly swept around the terrain, so she didn't pay too much attention to it and didn't remember it too clearly. I only had enough time to sneak into one of 3 rooms. There was one facing me that I could have directly entered. On the right, after crouching down, using shadow clone technique was enough to let me enter it. But for me to enter the one I went into, you saw, I had to use aerial fire to quickly move there to make it in time. If I went into the closest one, I'm guessing they would have decided to check that one first. After seeing that it was empty, they would go to the second one. And then the third. Quote. Why couldn't they split up and search? Chen Guo said. If there was a clear decision to make, why would they go separate to look? Yi Shu said. While getting up, you should keep talking about what you were talking about before. You're just going to leave it like that? Chen Guo pointed at the screen. I've already logged out. What's there to do? You're not going back online? I'll listen to you talk first, Yi Shu said. Didn't you say you were going to wipe out their team? Chen Guo had been behind Yi Shu the entire time, so Chen Guo had heard him talking. That was just something I said. 1v9, how could I do that? Yi Shu said. What type of person are you? Chen Guo coughed blood. Then why were you bragging? To give them pressure, Yi Shu said. How could they believe that? Chen Guo asked. Yi Shu said to her, how come it looked like you believed it? Chen Guo had no words. In the past few days, she hadn't bothered with him. Her mind was nice and peaceful. But today, with just a few words, she was once again speechless. In-game, Wang Jiaxi was still racking his brains trying to figure out where Lord Grimm was. Unable to bear it any longer, he decided to go add Lord Grimm as a friend. But after looking him up, the system said that Lord Grimm was no longer online. Wang Jiaxi stood there staring foolishly. Offline. As a pro player who was used to competing in the competitive scene, there was absolutely no way he could have come up with that solution. This was an issue of habit. However, at this moment, Wang Jiaxi had already understood everything. That guy had planned to go offline from the very start. Their first fights were all done in order to pull the distance between them. Those 3 simple buildings past the wall were the crucial points. Those 3 rooms were a trap. There was a chance that the plan would fail, but it was unlikely. The room closest to them would be the first that they would think about. The 2 other rooms were more difficult to figure out. In the end, Wang Jiaxi led his team to go over every building one at a time, giving him enough time to go offline. Seeing everyone's puzzled faces, Wang Jiaxi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. 1 versus 9. Sure enough, it was all just done to create pressure. Captain, Vice-Captain Deng Fusheng lightly said to him. Team Tiny Herb's morale had reached its lowest point. They still hadn't figured out that Lord Grimm had went offline. They were all turning and turning, searching like mad, yet how could they find him? Wang Jiaxi stood up. Everyone turned to look at him and hastily took off their headphones. They knew their captain was about to speak. There's no need to keep looking. That guy logged off, Wang Jiaxi said. What? Everyone was astonished. Even though they believed their captain, they still couldn't resist confirming it in the game. Just as expected, the system prompted that Lord Grimm wasn't online. Who knew how many times today the practice room was deathly silent? Log out escape. Didn't he say he was going to wipe out our team? Why'd he run? Someone looked down on him. If this was a match, then it would be equivalent to him forfeiting. Someone knew what this log out escape meant in a competitive setting. Then that's it for today. You guys can rest now. Those who are interested can stay here and wait for him to come online. Wang Jiaxi finished. He himself went back to his seat, keeping guard with his Fiery Blaze account. The captain was going to wait. Everyone obviously saw this. As a result, no one left. The captain was their model. Even though he said that they could rest, if the captain was going to stay, then who was going to leave? Liang Fang's and Lu Xiaobi's characters had already ran back. Tiny Herb had a total of 11 players on the team and now began to disperse. Captain, should we ambush him? The vice-captain ran to Wang Jiaxi's Fiery Blaze to talk to him. Is there a need to? Killing him isn't our goal. Our goal is to use him to raise our team's skill level, Wang Jiaxi said. Oh. Li Ji, Lu Fei, you too, Wang Jiaxi shouted. Yes, the 2 immediately responded. The coordination between the 2 of you is extremely good. However, today, you 2 had no way of stopping Lord Grimm. Your patterns follow conventional reasoning too well, so it's easy for others to see through it, especially for experienced veterans like Yi Chu. You 2 need to be a bit more imaginative by acting more freely, Wang Jiaxi said. Yes. The 2 replied. Liang Fang, Lu Xiaobi, Wang Jiaxi called for the 2 who had lost their duels. The two hastily ran over. What are your thoughts? Wang Jiaxi asked. The two were silent. In the low levels, unspecialized characters have a large advantage due to their vast amount of skills. None of you have ever encountered a single character with all of these assortments of skills and lack the experience necessary to beat him. That's why losing to him is very normal. Even I'm not an opponent for him in a duel, Wang Jiaxi said. Everyone listen well, Wang Jiaxi raised his voice. Everyone paid attention. Everyone knows who Yi Chu is. Even if he's retired, his skill level is still top tier in the alliance. Right now, he's also using an unspecialized character, which has such an early game advantage in skills. Everyone is also very unfamiliar with this class, so don't be concerned about winning or losing. Everyone should treasure this opportunity to fight hand in hand with this type of top-tier player. Discover your own flaws and think of a way to improve. This is our purpose for clearing this boss. Wang Jiaxi said. Hey, what boss? Should you be talking like that? A voice suddenly interrupted. Chapter 139, Who's the training partner? Wang Jiaxi's fiery blaze was standing outside the clay building's entrance. After hearing the voice, he immediately turned around and entered the building. No one. Still no one. Then who had been speaking just before? Outside of the building, Team Tiny Herb's players were also thinking the same, but quickly found the answer. Soft Mist. Last night, one of the players that had wiped out their team was a female battle mage, who was currently standing to the side. This was a very ordinary location in desolate land. Monsters respawned here and random players would pass by. Team Tiny Herb had been keeping guard, waiting for the boss to respawn, so they weren't looking around too carefully, especially when the captain had spoken. Even though it was in the game, everyone still had their characters look towards Fiery Blaze. This was how Soft Mist was able to get beside them without them noticing. Of the 10 players, only the 5 subs from last night recognized Soft Mist. The 5 players from the main roster were still looking around left and right trying to figure out who it was. You guys really have a lot of patience, Soft Mist was speaking. However, it was a male's voice. Yishu's voice. Correct. Yishu had taken Tang Ru's account and ran over to take a look at the situation. Tang Ru was sitting behind him with a rice bowl in her hands. She had just gotten up and was currently eating dinner. Who are these guys? Why do they keep coming back? Tang Ru asked. She also recognized those 5 players from last night. However, today, their troops had grown larger and it looked like they had called more troops over for revenge. Yeah, they're endless, Yishu said. However, his words could be heard in-game by Team Tiny Herb's members. Everyone was extremely gloomy, but they didn't act blindly without thinking and waited for their captain to give them orders. Battle Mage, Wang Jiaxi's fiery blaze walked up and said. Yup, Yishu said. He brandished the battle lance in Soft Mist's hands. Battle Mage. This was the class that he had truly used for 10 years. Even though his 10 years of experience had let him be proficient in every class, the Battle Mage was still his most liked and most familiar class. Xiao Yun, you go up, Wang Jiaxi called for him. Xiao Yun stared blankly. They were the same class. He was level 26 and his opponent was level 28. There wouldn't be much of a difference between their equipment. However, he was still lacking in terms of skill levels and stats, so there was still a small difference. Don't be nervous. Don't forget, you're one of the members of a champion team, Wang Jiaxi said. At this moment, Wang Jiaxi didn't say, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose could only be said when team morale was at its lowest. It was a type of comfort. During a real battle, even if it was only for learning, this type of mentality couldn't be had, especially for a member of a team that wanted to be champions. Winning was always number one. Don't worry about winning or losing. That type of talk could only be said by Wang Jiaxi at a suitable time to get rid of any unnecessary baggage in everyone's minds. Xiao Yun, you can do it, a few teammates cheered him on. Xiao Yun's fighting spirit suddenly ignited. Even though he was against a trump card god among battle mages, this was already of the past. Yi Chu had already left the pro scene. And himself? He was currently ascending up the ladder slowly. Why should he be afraid of a washed-up player? Thinking like this, Xiao Yun's battle mage Cloudy Heavens raised his battle lance and went out to do battle. Ha ha, so it's you, Yi Chu laughed. Xiao Yun suddenly weakened. It was only 5 simple words. However, his tone made Xiao Yun suddenly think of his tragic experience last night of getting killed by Vanishing Step. Do you need a few chasers first? Yi Chu asked. Xiao Yun felt even more embarrassed. Yesterday, he had carried 7 chasers to kill him, but he never had the chance to use them. For a battle mage, to not be able to use the class's most characteristic feature, chasers, was too much of a joke. Xiao Yun was about to say something, when he heard his team captain shout out from behind, Xiao Yun, don't waste time trash talking. Trash talking? Xiao Yun stared blankly. In Glory's competitive scene, any taunting or provoking done between 2 sides in chat was called trash talking. But in game, the other side didn't have to type out messages and could directly talk. As pro players, they had to learn how to deal with these types of situations. Trash talking was always done deliberately by experts to find a weak point and to irritate you. There were very few people who truly enjoyed saying such words. This was also one tactic for psychological warfare. Xiao Yun took a deep breath. There were 2 ways of dealing with trash talk. One way was to counter with your own trash talk and see who was better at it. The second way was to ignore it and maintain a calm mental state. The current expert at using both ways was Huang Xiaoshan. For that guy, first of all, he talked to himself, so he didn't care about what the other side was saying. Second was his typing attacks, which were classified as group attacks. Directly attacking the entire team was something that he had done before. For new players, trash talk was an extremely serious challenge for them. For example, for Gao Yingji, who was viewed as the player who would succeed Wang Jiexi, although his skill level was already very good, he still hadn't had any experience in an official match. This was all because his shy and introverted nature still had to be tempered. If he was sent into a match against Huang Xiaoshan's typing attacks, it wasn't wrong to say that there was a chance he would be attacked until he was crying. After hearing the captain speak, Xiao Yun collected himself and stopped thinking about what Yi Chu had said. Afraid that Yi Chu would say something that would make hurt him even more, he immediately raised his battle lance and attacked. Soft Mist also raised her battle lance and welcomed him. The 2 battle mages began fighting in an instant. Everyone subconsciously walked closer a few steps in order to see the battle unfold more clearly. Everyone, record it, Wang Jiexi ordered, and then opened the record function too. In a battle of the same class, there was less fancy maneuvers and more caution. Because they both knew their class from top to bottom, their usual ways of fighting were usually useless. Xiao Yun went up and used Dragon Tooth, Sky Strike, Falling Flower Palm, Circle Swing, chaining together the battle mage's most basic set of 4 skills. However, none of them hit. Following up, Soft Mist did the same and chained together these 4 skills, which also all missed Cloudy Heavens. Against a class he himself was extremely familiar with, Xiao Yun clearly performed a lot better than last time. Dodging and attacking, the 2 battle mages took turns attacking. But their magic chasers were never able to form. Until now, the 2 hadn't yet successfully hit each other yet. The more Xiao Yun fought, the more energetic he became. He discovered that once Yi Chu took off that weird unspecialized class, he was only just so. Sure enough, he really was a retired pro player. His fighting was extremely ordinary. Unfortunately, this was only a battle between low-leveled accounts in the new server. If this was in a pro match, the finals, at a key moment, his teammates were all dead and only him and one Autumn Leaf were fighting in the decisive battle, where victory would signify their spot as champions, and he found an opening. At this moment, a clear opening had been exposed on Soft Mist. Xiao Yun didn't let the opportunity pass. The battle lance in Cloudy Heaven's hands stabbed forward like a viper. His attack hit and this battle's first magic chaser was formed. Immediately following, a Sky Strike headed towards Soft Mist along with the neutral chaser he had just formed. The chaser exploded. Magic damage. Cloudy Heavens also gained a movement speed buff and his movements quickened. He swiftly closed in. Seeing Soft Mist, he wanted to also play around with her using Vanishing Step. But, all in all, he didn't have enough skill to do so. By the time he'd have figured out where he should move towards, Soft Mist would have already almost fallen to the ground by then. His opponent wasn't like a doll and responded with a mid-air stab to try and stop Cloudy Heavens from coming closer. However, this attack was clearly a bit frantic while in mid-air. Cloudy Heavens leapt backwards and easily dodged it. He quickly stepped forward and then used a falling flower palm, hitting her directly. Not waiting for his opponent to fly, he immediately followed up with a circle swing and Soft Mist crashed to the ground. Xiao Yun was extraordinarily proud. He felt that he was an MVP-level god. He rushed forward to attack. While doing so, he thought he heard a "my turn." Xiao Yun didn't have time to think carefully. He attacked twice at that Soft Mist, who was laying there like a dead person. Xiao Yun also hesitated, when he suddenly heard the captain yell, "Look out!" Just as it was said, Soft Mist suddenly rolled. Xiao Yun had Cloudy Heavens chase him with a stab, full of confidence. The opponent got up and then jumped, just barely dodging Cloudy Heavens' lance. High up in the sky, the battle lance pricked up and a sky strike flew over. Xiao Yun hastily did a roll and Cloudy Heavens avoided it. After Soft Mist landed, she immediately used a dragon tooth. Cloudy Heavens sidestepped, dodging it. The opponent's skills along with normal attacks arrived one after another, while saying, "See, it's best to use a few normal attacks between skills in order to change up your tempo." When trying to maintain the situation, the more available skills you have the better. For example, when you chain 4 skills at once, even though it has a lot of power, once the combo's finished and those 3 skills go on cooldown, there are a lot fewer choices you can make during that time, so it'll be much easier for your opponent to see through you. This isn't only for in the early game. You'll have to pay attention to do this when you reach the late game too. Even though you have more skills in the late game, the cooldowns for high-level skills are longer. Throwing down all your skills at once isn't a very smart way of fighting. Oh, Tang Ru, who was standing behind Yishu, replied. She had been fighting against the player who had been beaten up in the air by Yishu yesterday. Only after fighting against him did she realize that his person had been played around with wasn't as easy to deal with as she had previously thought. When all of your skills are ready to be used, that's when you're at your strongest. In reverse, you also have to pay attention to how many skills your opponent has used too. What is the cooldown for that skill? See, he just used a falling flower palm, so in the next 4 seconds, falling flower palm can't be used by him. Use this time to close in. Besides falling flower palm, the current battle mage skills that can be used are all line or point attacks, so if we choose to close in quickly at a slight angle. Look, he doesn't have any skills he can use to stop us right now. Oops, falling flower palm. I said too much and 4 seconds have passed, so falling flower palm is off cooldown. Just as Yishu was about to close in, Cloudy Heavens used a falling flower palm. He hastily leapt back, letting Soft Mist dodge it. What are you doing? Who are you talking with? Xiao Yun shouted. Chapter 140, Find Me Next Door. Watch this, Soft Mist said this and then once again took advantage of the fact that Cloudy Heaven's skills were on cooldown and closed into attack. This time, Yishu didn't say anything further. He would first demonstrate it before saying anything more. After only 2 moves, Cloudy Heaven was knocked into the air. Xiao Yun was extremely gloomy. At this moment, he had already figured out what had happened. The 2 Soft Mists before and after were completely different. As a pro player, of course he had this level of judgment. Plus, with Yishu's sudden non-stop chatter, Xiao Yun finally understood that in the beginning, he had been the one brought as a training partner. And now, he was once again being used a teaching prop. Xiao Yun impatiently tried to hurry up and get out of the mid-air situation. But whenever his camera angle changed, he couldn't find his opponent. Vanishing step. Vanishing step again. Xiao Yun really hated this. Since he couldn't break out of the situation, it would clearly mean that his skill level was lower by a level. Thinking of how the entire team was watching him right now, he even had thoughts of dying. Fortunately, the opponent wasn't as vicious as last time. Even though he still used Vanishing Step, after a few hits, he used a circle swing to throw him into the ground. Xiao Yun immediately did a roll and then got up, afraid that his opponent would chase him down. However, Soft Mist didn't move. She stood there, chatting incessantly. Clearly, the player using her was explaining what he had just been doing. Teaching dummy. He really did become a teaching dummy. Xiao Yun was fuming in anger. He rushed forward to engage in combat again. Soft Mist casually dissolved his efforts while commenting. What went wrong there, what should be done, etc. Xiao Yun went from a teaching dummy to teaching material. Even more unfortunate was that his anger didn't bring out any hidden power for Xiao Yun. His movements were still that same as before. And, on the contrary, his impatience made him expose even more openings. Xiao Yun, withdraw, Wang Jiaxi finally said. As spectators with clear views of the scene, they figured out long ago that the soft mists before and after were played by two different people. At this moment, Xiao Yun's desire to win was quite fierce. However, his mental state had already gone out of control and he was now only pushing attacks with his anger. But Xiao Yun was still extremely focused with his playing. He unexpectedly hadn't heard Wang Jiaxi's words. Zhou Yebai, who was sitting next to him, hastily patted him. Xiao Yun, Captain wanted you to withdraw. This time, Xiao Yun got the message. After staring blankly for a bit, he gloomily withdrew to his captain's side. This was one of their customs. At moments like these, their captain would say a few words to them. Were you listening to what Yi Chu had been saying just before? Wang Jiaxi asked. Xiao Yun stared blankly. He had heard. He really had heard, so much so that he saw through him and discovered that he was being used by Yi Chu as a teaching dummy. But he knew that his captain definitely wasn't talking about this. I already knew everything he said, Xiao Yun justified himself. None of those theories were any big secret. Not just pro players, but even normal players knew about them. However, even if one knew about them, actually putting them to use was an entirely different matter. Since you didn't need to listen, why did you take his words as trash talk? Wang Jiaxi said. Xiao Yun stared blankly again. Wang Jiaxi didn't say anything more and let him reflect on his own. Captain, let me try. At this moment, a player actively requested to go up and fight. The player was the player who had been previously defeated, Liu Xiaobi. But seeing that the opponent wasn't using an unspecialized character, that truly difficult to deal with class, everyone was already eager to give it a try. Liu Xiaobi had lost once, so he had a bit of revenge on his mind. Let me try. The player who had also died once just before, Liang Fang, asked to go up too. Hey, before their captain was able to reply, Soft Mist walked over. Soft Mist was a female character, although the voice clearly belonged to a male. Everyone felt that it was a bit weird. Aren't we here to compare notes? Let's go to the arena, Yishu said. It looks like you have someone next to you who also needs guidance, Wang Jiaxi said. Yup. But I don't have as many people as you do, Yishu said. What type of person? A little sister from the internet cafe, Yishu said. Quote. I'm going to go on my account, Yishu said and then left. Soft Mist was returned to Tangru. Yishu logged into Lord Grimm and then walked out of the clay building. Team Tiny Herb's 11 players were all waiting outside. And for some time, they weren't sure what had just happened. Don't you think that this phrase would be amazing? Lord Grimm walked up, while Yishu asked. What phrase? Wang Jiaxi asked. Champion team becomes training partners with Internet Cafe Girl. That would probably make the headlines, right? Yishu said. The girl you're talking about is this Soft Mist, right? Wang Jiaxi said. Right. She's clearly a new player. Don't you think that directly using pro players as training partners is a bit too excessive? Wang Jiaxi said. Ha. For her, doing it this way fits her quite nicely, Yishu said. But I don't see how training with her will provide any benefits to us, Wang Jiaxi said. If you can't beat her, then you don't have the qualifications to fight with me, Yishu said. Wang Jiaxi was speechless for a while. That'll be quite easy for us to do. That's why you guys won't lose out. Unless you guys wanna keeping doing things like this and play hide and seek with me every day. You guys should be pretty busy, right? Do you guys really have that much time? Yishu asked. Arena, Wang Jiaxi's character Fiery Blaze turned around and then announced the news to everyone. Are these players all experts? Tang Ru's soft mist walked over to Lord Grimm to ask. Yeah, Yishu replied. How good? Tang Ru asked. They're a bit worse than me, Yishu said. Coughs immediately sprang up. Yishu ignored them. He asked Tang Ru, if you keep on losing, will you cry? What do you think? Tang Ru asked back. I just want you to be prepared, Yishu said. I don't believe it. Aren't you exaggerating too much? Tang Ru said. Yeah, that's the spirit. Yishu lit his cigarette. The group returned to town and entered the arena. Can I use my unspecialized? Yishu asked. Everyone in Tiny Herb was speechless. This wasn't an easy question to answer. If you said no, then it'd mean that they were scared. If you said yes, then they really would be scared. Going against an unspecialized was extremely hard. In the end, they heard the captain say, "What are you guys worrying about? If you can't get over it, then go to bed." Winning or losing doesn't matter couldn't always be said. Wang Jiaxi hoped that his teammates would show that they didn't fear losing and learn from their failure. Beating an unspecialized at this level, especially Yichu's Lord Grimm, truly was nearly impossible for everyone. Under this situation, this would tell him who had the courage to face against a loss and improve because of it. The team was silent. It didn't matter whether or not their mental states could bear it. No one was going to choose to leave. Who wants to go first? Wang Jiaxi asked. Me. Lu Xiaobi walked directly to Lord Grimm. We've already agreed that you have to pass her first, Yishu hinted at Tang Ru. It'll be quick, Lu Xiaobi said full of confidence. He created a 1v1 room. The others joined as spectators. After Yishu entered, he left a message and then left. If you win, come find me next door, password 15951. How long can she last? Yishu silently thought in his newly created room. He wasn't sitting together with Tang Ru, so he couldn't see how the battle was going and could only guess. As a first opponent, Lu Xiaobi was quite unfavorable for Tang Ru. Tang Ru's main advantage was her hand speed. However, Lu Xiaobi was famous in the pro scene for his hand speed. What had originally been Tang Ru's advantage was a disadvantage to her in front of Lu Xiaobi. As for experience, understanding, knowledge, and decision-making, they weren't comparable. Probably around 40 seconds, Yishu guessed a time. For him, this was a type of habit. Using his experience, he could directly simulate a match and, from that, he could make a final guess. 43 seconds. The time wasn't far from Yishu's guess. Lu Xiaobi started out extremely fiercely and didn't show any mercy towards her. He was even more impatient about wasting his time on a noob like her. This was the first time that she felt powerless because someone's hand speed was higher than hers. Against that battle mage Cloudy Heavens, she could still put up a fight. But up against this Blade Master, she was completely suppressed from the very start and never had a chance to counterattack. It was a complete victory. Everyone in the room suddenly disappeared. Tang Ru stared blankly and then left, too. She joined the room next door as a spectator, but didn't find Lord Grimm. Where are you? Tang Ru asked Yishu. Find me next door, Yishu replied. I am next door. I don't see you, Tang Ru replied. Find me next door is the room's name. Tang Ru was speechless. She left the room and then searched. Sure enough, there was a room called Find Me Next Door. She typed in the password and entered. Lord Grimm was the only one inside. The others had probably been thrown off by the play on words, too. How was it? Yishu asked Tang Ru. They really were strong, Tang Ru said. That opponent just happened to counter you, Yishu said. It doesn't matter who the person is, I'll beat him, Tang Ru said. It'd be great if you could do that, Yishu said. Definitely, Tang Ru said. The two continued to chat. Someone from Tiny Herb finally entered. Soon afterwards, the others rushed in. Was there a point? Wang Jiaxi clearly didn't appreciate Yi Shu's little play on words. Everyone was in spectator mode, ready to watch Liu Xiaobi enter the field. However, they didn't see him. After a while, they saw him enter as a spectator and say, "What's going on? I can't join the battle." "Pay attention to the conditions for joining the battle," Yi Shu said. "I already beat her," Liu Xiaobi said. "I was talking about the system setup," Yi Shu said. System setup? Everyone was puzzled. In the end, Wang Jiaxi found it the fastest gambling match? "Of course, it's a gambling match," Yi Shu said. 40 strong spider silk, Wang Jiaxi saw Yi Shu's bet. "I don't think you guys have high-level materials either." In reality, Yi Shu didn't have anything on him. He had used up all of the materials he recently got. These strong spider silk were from the extra he earned from the first time he substituted in. Gambling matches couldn't be made in the arena without a starting bet. The stakes were all mortgaged by the system. "We don't have these either," Wang Jiaxi said impolitely. "Come on, find a way. If you don't have these, then an equivalent exchange is fine." "Would you like me to give you a list of items?" Yi Shu asked.